In his great new book, Education for the Age of AI, Charles Fidel said entrepreneurship is the job of the future. Entrepreneurship is about identifying problems and spotting opportunities, developing innovative solutions, and creating value and sustainable ventures. In the last few months, powerful AI tools that help with all three of those, with opportunity recognition, design, and impact, have become widely available worldwide, including to young people. And that both creates a new level of opportunity, particularly for young people, but it also accelerates the pace and the need for entrepreneurship. So there's a new need and opportunity for everyone, especially young people, to develop an entrepreneurial mindset and the skills of entrepreneurship. You're listening to the Getting Smart podcast. I'm Tom Vander, and today we're talking to Don Wettrick about entrepreneurship education. Don's been promoting entrepreneurship in Indiana for more than 25 years, including 20 years as a teacher and teacher leader, and for the last 7 years as the CEO of StartEdUp Foundation, which hosts the nation's largest high school pitch competition. Don, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to see you again.
Why is entrepreneurship education important?
Oh, man. Where do I begin? Because everything you've ever purchased in your life solved a problem. And the world is full of problems. One of my favorite quotes about education was from Seth Godin. Education can be boiled down to two things: solving interesting problems and the leadership to get it done. I would say the first one is identifying an interesting problem, then beginning to work on it. And so entrepreneurship is a fancy way of saying I've identified a problem that I think that I know how to fix.
Your answer reminded me of Lead Innovation Studio in Kansas City. It's a cool high school. First class that students take is leadership and design.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Seth Godin identified, but that's the right way to start high school, right? With those two questions of learning how to lead and learning how to spot and solve problems.
Absolutely. And do it for real. Like at the risk of sounding like Johnny Cochran, I identified a long time ago that the world is full of moaners and groaners. I wanted to create seekers and peakers. Opportunity seekers listen to people complain and think, well, I can do something about it. Peakers are really what's getting interesting, because students that are peeking around the corner and saying, if these scenarios are right, this is going to be a big deal. Knowing the band before it's cool, right? I had students that were telling me back in 2012, esports is going to be a really big deal in the United States. We should start something here at our high school. Those kids were absolutely peeking around the corner. So that ability to seek opportunities is another way of saying entrepreneurship.
I love that. Is Fidel right that entrepreneurship is the job of the future? Is it for everybody? And does that mean everybody has to go start a business, or is this a broader set of skills that everybody will employ in different ways?
Man, that's a deep question, because, the difference between an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur, I think the entrepreneurial minded, that is of the future for sure. And really even the people that know how to augment the AI to make it more efficient. So is everybody going to be an entrepreneur? No. But even if you're working at, pick your poison, whether it's retail, whether it's engineering, whatever, if you can identify a problem, instead of saying, well, it sucks, and I like to complain around the water cooler about it, if you can take ownership and say, I think that I'm onto something, I'd like to form a small team that we can execute on it, you are the most valued person at that company. Even if you're at a fast food restaurant saying, everybody's complaining about our bathrooms, I'm going to take initiative and make sure that I spot check them every 30 minutes. Oh my gosh. And that ability to listen to people complain and then do solutions is, I think, the gold standard.
Yeah. A couple times you've talked about problem solving or opportunity spotting. I really think that's the new superpower. Our friends at the Kern Foundation, they run a national network of engineering schools where they teach entrepreneurial mindset. And engineering's always been about designing solutions, but they said no. Actually, entrepreneurial mindset starts with opportunity recognition.
Yes.
And then it's design, and then it's delivering value. It's a cycle all the way to pleasing a customer group. So it's opportunity recognition, design, and impact. And those feel like an important set of skills that whether you start a company or build a nonprofit initiative or deploy them as an entrepreneur, that as you just said, that spotting work worth doing, finding an opportunity is going to be super valued anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it seems so obvious, but we have a culture problem of it just feels good to complain. Man, I awareness campaigns. I think there was a commercial like 5 or 6 years ago that it was a security monitoring system. And they're like, hey, just want to let you know your credit card got hacked. I'm like, what are you doing about it? Oh, no, we're just in a monitoring system. You're being ripped off. And what are you doing? No, nothing. We're really the nation, not young people. The nation is really good at pointing out what stinks. I like for my young people to go, all right, I'll give this a go and see what happens. And by the way,
So,
even by leading, that's your opportunity because the entrepreneurs that we work with, they're marveling on a kid that has tried 3 businesses and failed. And they're like, oh my gosh, the education you've gotten is gold. That ability just to lead and go, yeah, I gave it a shot and I lost all my money. Do it now before you have kids.
one cool thing about Kansas City is that as a region, they embrace the idea of entrepreneurship, and they've made a goal that every kid in the region will have an entrepreneurial experience. The problem is it turns out it's pretty hard for traditional high schools to teach entrepreneurship. There's usually not a class called entrepreneurship. It's hard to know where to fit it in. So I'd love to know what you're doing at Startup Ed Foundation in
Yep.
Indiana. I mean, tell us about this pitch competition and how you get young people
Yeah.
involved in entrepreneurship.
One, we have a teacher accelerator. I mean, by the way, any student can participate in it, doesn't matter. But we now have several teachers because through the evolution of Innovate Within, it just kept getting more and more sophisticated. This thing is really hard to win now. But in the first couple of years, we kept noticing that there were certain schools that were better. Like the students had gone through some pivots and some changes. They understood product market fit. They understood costs. And so we started looking into it. We realized that it wasn't the school, it was one teacher. And amazingly, it was a teacher that half the time they weren't even in the business department. They were engineering teachers, they were music production teachers, they were band
Mm.
directors. But in their class time, they're like, well, I'll tell you, if somebody can fix this, and the students then they liked Innovate Within. So we started basically this fellowship of very rare teachers, which is now turned an accelerator that we find the right teachers to be in this inner circle because we have 2 core beliefs on this. Factually speaking, nobody knows more people than teachers. So if you can bind them together and chart their network, there's nobody you can't get to. And if you need hey, I need, like, not too long ago, there was a teacher in our fellowship that's like, hey, does anybody know anybody in plastic injection molding? 8 hands go up. Yeah, my best friend's brother's uncle. This teacher network is, when it's combined, there's so many things that we can get for students for free. And then secondly, when we start talking about seeing a problem as an opportunity, therefore, if you see more problems, you are open to more opportunities. So
Yeah.
sometimes the students that are going to the really, really nice upper end schools, ironically, they're not seeing as many opportunities. The students
Yeah.
that are daily saying, well, that sucks, they're going, wait a second, there's a gold mine here. And it's those teachers that spend some time with our kids throughout the school day saying, like, all right, what would you do? How would you go about that? Break it down for me. So we have a network of teachers, multifaceted in different departments that are just fixated and they love solving problems.
I love it. How many teachers? How long is the fellowship? What do they do? What do they learn?
Man, I love your questions. So it is now an accelerator at a year 1 because some of our teachers have been with us 5+ years. They're now at a fellowship level. They get some extra perks and benefits. They got to do some cool things and overseas, and we got some opportunities from them. The teachers in the accelerator, it runs the school year, and if you want to continue, there's some things that on how to continue. But essentially, there's some curriculum. There's an all hands on deck thing at the beginning of the year. It's in person, and then we have monthly get-togethers, not only to compare notes but to compare networks. But we also have a really unique network. We'll have some guest speakers on We actually do that same thing with students too. The teachers that are in the network, we've had on some interesting thought leaders. We did a thing last month with an actress named Tiffany Haddish. Did a thing last year with 50 Cent. Just odd things of that nature of getting them to impart of, hey, solving problems is cool, entrepreneurship's cool. So the teachers get those kind of fun things to do.
So Don, there's a couple other folks in the entrepreneurship education space that have classes with a really well-defined curriculum, and then teachers go get training, and kids have a really uniform experience. This sounds different. It sounds like the entrepreneurial experiences might show up in each one of these schools in a little bit different way, in a little bit different class. Is that it?
Yes. And it's kind of funny because there's some schools, the engineering department is so good that in this competition, they have a lot of really well done prototypes. We have some schools that are so passionate about social entrepreneurship and social cause change and stuff. They have a lot of, you guessed it, things in social entrepreneurship. So it really has reflected the educator. And I'll say this, and I'll name it after him. We call it the Brett Taylor effect. One of our teachers at Terre Haute North just kept talking about it, but he was asking the other teachers down the hall to help him. So there was one guy in the prototyping department that had the cool CNC routers and 3D printers. Hey, would you help my students with this? So he wanted to be a part of the fellowship. Then he noticed that the TV production and documentary film teacher down the other hall could work on sizzle reels and some marketing help. And so it even though it started with one teacher in one certain department, it grew as opposed to it has to be in a business 101 class. That's definitely been our difference. And quite honestly, our curriculum is modular. You can pick and choose here and there. But at the end of the day, we still want you to see a problem as an opportunity, break it down, and share us what your solution is.
That's very cool. And so you've been doing this for what, 6 or 7 years? You've reached dozens of
Yeah.
teachers.
Oh yeah,
How many?
hundreds. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is year 7 for the fellowship. This is year 5 plus. As an actual fellowship that is backed and all this other stuff. Yeah, we're about to be in year 5.
And what about the students? You have a pitch competition that I mentioned in the opening. What's that about?
It's called Innovate Within. Full transparency. The Secretary of Commerce and the governor approached us and they wanted to do a Shark Tank kind of thing for high school students. But we were really different. We did not make this is not a business plan competition. We do not want you to talk about vaporware and you had a $50 million budget. You have a budget of $5 or whatever. But Innovate Within is gotten to be huge. And if I can humble brag about the kids, within this last 2 years, well, just recently we had 2 students get into Y Combinator, and if that is
That's
the
crazy
most,
amazing. Yeah.
the second youngest to ever get into YC. At 18, they got into YC. We had 2 that got into Forbes 30 under 30. We had a young man that just got 5 mil in National Institute of Health for his research on his AI and VR addiction therapy. It's been amazing, and again, I credit the teachers of spending some time with them. But again, the setting the tone of this is not a business plan competition. What problem are you solving? And we've had everything from tech to textiles to fishing lures, and we have learned that because every teacher is different, there's so many unique value props in this of people wanting to solve problems for a range of things. And I think that that's what really excites us is that every year, like we'll never outdo last year's class. And then some students start identifying a new thing and then poof, which what I'm also excited about is gee whiz, some of the proposals are really good now because of chat 4 and that's fine. Like I want them to use it. They have world-class research. It's doing it. You can say, I should do this because chat 4 said so. It's then doing it. And I think that that's what we pride ourselves is that a lot of the students we want to make, we want you to launch something.
How many kids enter? Is it a annual
Yeah.
cycle?
Yeah, I think last year we had 3,000, but grand prize was $25,000 seed funding. There's additional college money. There's a lot of scholarships from the universities that sponsor this. But I will say this, and I'm hoping the kids will say the same as well. A lot of our success stories, although the two students got into Y Combinator, did win last year, but we've had so many other successes that they came in third, fourth, seventh. It was their launching pad of okay, I should take this seriously. But yeah, $25,000 first. Second is 5,000. But it's this alumni association. If you win your regionals, we want to know you for the next 30 years. So we have this group of alumni association that they get together a lot and help each other out.
Wow, that's very cool. And so some students probably are encouraged and supported by teachers that come to your fellowship. Others find you or you find them and they're DIY, right?
It's been the Facebook parents that are like, wait a second, my daughter already does this. And so, yeah, there's been some that they found it because they found it us online or on social media.
Are there any resources or is there any scaffolding that kids can step into as they think about applying?
Yeah. So even at the Innovate Within level, we have a mini course of we really, really don't want you to turn in a vague idea. We go through everything from idea creation, product market fit in a pretty succinct way. The thing is that if you make it to the next round, our small business development centers in Indiana, all of them have agreed that they'll meet with all the regionals and they get free stuff from the SBDCs. So yeah, with each level becomes a new level of support. And then if you make it to state, if you make like all 10 teams, we go and we take an immersion trip. We're going back to Washington, D.C. because we've got some A-list people for them to meet. But even like in that 6-week span between the regional finals and the state finals, there's a mini accelerator that they can be a part of, and they get a lot of training. And I'll say this, Tom, even Governor Holcomb pointed it out the last 2 years. And even at the regional level, but definitely state level, Eric Holcomb last year goes, did you notice that they all had advisory boards? All of these teams, and they're not moms and dads and aunts and uncles, Tom.
Yeah.
It's how did you get a hold of her? Like it's nuts. But again, that teacher network of I know somebody you need to talk to, or I know somebody, and they start making introductions. As a parent, I'm more impressed by the network they can build before they graduate from high school. I think that's just stunningly awesome. And again, a lot of at the heart of it is introductions from the teachers.
So you could do this in a city or a region, but it sounds like there's some benefits to rolling this up to a state. Like every state ought to have a program like this, right?
Well, that's what we're working on, Tom. So yeah, we're believing the same thing. We actually this year we have teachers from 6 other states, so that's starting to roll out. I will say this about a competition. In some ways, it's a blessing and a curse. If this was just an exposition and they all just presented, the quality would never be where it is now. And at the same time, it hurts my soul to say that some win and some lose. But at the same time, I also realize that a lot of our students that did not win have been our most successful. And we're pleased about that too.
Don, at the outset, I was mumbling about us being at this new threshold of human existence, but it does feel like we just stepped into a space where anybody, especially young people, can do more than we could have ever imagined even 3 or 4 years ago. And that is this crazy, amazing possibility. And I don't know, I think you share that sense of possibility with me. And I think you're the best example in America of somebody sharing that sense of possibility with young people. Do you buy that? I mean, is it?
I appreciate that. Thank you. We have a young man who just launched a company. I think he just turned 21. The rest of his team is in their 50s. And the rest of his team are research people. And the person that's designing a lot of the AI tools is the 21-year-old. That gives me a lot of hope because in some ways there's so many opportunities But to quote the late, great Glenn Fry, so much has happened that nothing has changed. Like Wikipedia was the end of language arts, and then it wasn't. And then we all freaked out when Chat 1 came out and every kid's going to cheat on their essay. That may be, but have we changed? And so I think that this is the time where I'm most concerned. I'm 52, and I remember when I was in university, there was this big thing coming called the World Wide Web. I was on these little Cincinnati Reds groups and everything else, and this was like 1992. And the people that got in early made a lot, and they got all the advantages. Same thing is going to happen. The schools that are cool with their students working with AI are going to win. The ones that lock
Yes,
it down are going to regret it.
absolutely. And so let me try again to just frame. I'm like, I feel like I've turned over, tipped upside down my view of education. That for the last 50 years, I've been thinking about education as preparation. We're helping, it's prophylactic. We're helping just in case. We're helping kids get ready for something 10 or 15 years down the road. And right now in high school, in part because of AI, we can we can flip this thing over and not think about education as preparation, but education as contribution, inviting kids into work that matters to them and to their community. And that changes everything when we invite kids to find problems we're solving and support them, right?
Yes. Yes. I,
Um,
so there's a buzz term which I love called the theory of change. Our theory of change is that we want to have every high school be its own innovation hub. I will tell one more brief story. There's this set off this love affair with us and some people in DC. Indiana, so Chuck Schumer and Todd Young were working on a bill with the Chips and Tech Hubs Act. There was a listening tour, and the Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Alejandra Castilla, had come to town. And strangely, they put me on this round table, which I was honored to be on. But everybody there, and by the way, the bill was to create infrastructure. So everybody was like, we need to build an innovation center in this town. We need to build a co-working space in this town, and a cool this and a cool that. And I don't disagree, but it got around to me, and I said, I would like to give everybody an update and how excited I am. There is an innovation center in every town in Indiana already. The bricks have been laid, guys. The heat's already been paid for. It's called your local high school. And I said, especially if you want to have your local mayors or representatives hand off problems to students, and they know they can count on at least a couple of teachers that are the innovation hub. And
yeah,
Alejandra literally looked around the corner. She says, that. Every high school can be a certified innovation hub. And that's where we're working towards.
I
Because
love that.
we have built so many relationships with so many great senators and on both parties, by the way, and mayors of
Yeah,
both parties. And everybody wants to talk about talent retraction and retention. You take a 16-year-old seriously and you say you want to work on this, they're going to be proud of that. And so we have students that, I'm not saying it needs to be the entire school day, but an hour and a half a
yes.
day where they can work on something real and meaningful for their town, for their school, for their nation, whatever. They're going to appreciate it. They're going to screw up. They're going to fail. It's going to look like absolute until it's not. And they're going to appreciate that journey. And so I want to have every high school be known as an innovation hub, and then every middle school as a feeder to when you get there, there's something for you to look forward to.
I love that vision. We might be able to add community college to that. It could also be an
Absolutely.
innovation hub.
Yeah.
All right. In the last couple of minutes, I want to give you a chance just to offer some advice on next steps. So maybe three people, like a young person thinking about entrepreneurial next steps. If you have any advice
Mm,
there. Second would be
mm.
a teacher or teacher leader thinking about stepping into this space. What should they do next? Let's start with those. What kind of advice? Where should they start? Give them a URL or two.
Sure. I'd say if you're a young person, taking us out of the equation, if you can identify a problem and I'm not talking about one that would take $50 million, but if you can identify a problem and you start getting the reputation of tackling it and being able to build a team, you will win. You will build a community. You will win. If you would like extra support or like to talk to us, man, we're on StartEdUpFoundation.org. We have built a plethora of alumni that there's a lot of people under 25 that would love to talk to you. If you're an educator,
Awesome.
we want you. We want you. We want to work with you. We want to open up a lot of opportunities for you. And quite frankly, we think that you bring a lot to the party. More and more teachers, when they start really thinking about it, they have access to more. If you've taught for 5 years, you've had at least 3 lawyers that are successful that would help you. We'd like for you to help. We'd like to help you with that. We'd like for you to get to be that hub where that eventually your mayor knows when he picks up the phone, they can call Miss or Mr. So-and-so, and they know where to go to get things done. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, if you have a kid, if you're a parent that you know that your son or daughter, we have so many C&D students, Tom. The biggest fight we have is that there's a lot of kids that don't feel like they're successful, and they're our most successful. If you're a parent and you're just mortified that the grades that your kid's not getting, I'm telling you, you might want to put them on to entrepreneurship. You might want to see that gem, because at our core belief, if the student that sees more problems has access to more opportunities, it is then about building a network. And if you can have your son or daughter build a network at 15, advantage them. And a parent knows how to unlock that for their kid. Have conversations at the dinner table. Don't let your kid complain. What are you going to do about it? That sucks. Fine. What would you do if I gave you $20 to solve it? Have those conversations.
I love it. I mentioned Charles Fidel at the beginning of the show. Charles updated his outcome framework, and he said there's a set of drivers that are now more important than ever, and he calls them identity, agency, purpose, and motivation. If you, like Charles, think those are the outcomes that matter for the age of AI, invite kids into entrepreneurship. Do what Don said, and ask them to find a problem we're solving, and support them. You'll boost agency, identity, motivation, and purpose. Don Wettrick, StartEdUp Foundation. What a treat, man. We'll do this again sooner than 5 years.
I would appreciate it. Thank you for all you do, man. You've been a guiding light and a inspiration for me since way back in my classroom days. So I appreciate you.
All right, on the way out, I want to share one more tip from Don. Don has a half-hour commute at night, and one of the cool things he does is he dials a friend. He will find somebody on his phone, and he will call them and hope that they will pick up.
Oh, Tom, it's not even friends. 2 days ago, thank you for bringing it up. It'll change your life. I have saved so many numbers in my phone because I used to speak a lot, and I'd go to some schools or whatever. And I'll get out my phone, and on every day, I literally won't look at it, and I'll just scroll, and I'll go up and down, and I'll stop, and whoever it lands on, that's who I call that day. Tom, I called a lady. When she answered, I go, "Hi, my name is Don Wettrick. I've got this weird ritual," and I said, "The name doesn't look." She said, "Oh my gosh, you spoke at our school 7 years ago." So I talked to a principal secretary the other day just because I scrolled. It will change your life. Talk to somebody new every day on your commute home.
We're glad we landed on you today. Thanks for joining us, Don Wettrick. Thanks to our producer, Mason Pasha, and the whole Getting Smart team who makes this possible every week. Until next week, keep learning, keep leading, and keep innovating for equity. See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Getting Smart podcast today. We want this podcast to be actionable, insightful, and a great way to learn about what's next in learning. In order to stay on the cutting edge, we need people in the field to tell us what they're hearing, what they're wanting, and what they're needing to learn more about. Got a topic or a guest in mind? Send your recommendations to me, Mason at gettingsmart.com. And if you like what you're hearing, don't forget to leave a review in Apple Podcasts or subscribe wherever you listen. Feel free to share the podcast on social media using the hashtag GSPodcasts. Thanks so much.